Good morning. You find me today at some red light in the outskirts of Orléans, and just because I'm wearing a t-shirt doesn't mean it's particularly hot. It's good inside the car, but it's actually raining, although it's not that cold outside. It seems the rain has been following us. Nah, it's just natural in April for that to happen. We gave up on Orléans. We didn't actually like our first impressions that much, and the weather's not that good. And we have a long journey to Sarlat-la-Caneda, which is a typical village in the middle of France. It actually looks pretty, but for now we're just heading first to Limoges, which is probably one of the biggest cities in the middle of France, which isn't saying much. And we're probably gonna have lunch there, and then we're gonna head to Sarlat-la-Caneda, and it's almost a 5-hour drive, I think. So today is a little bit more of a stretch, and actually the last day will be even more of a stretch because we have to do something like 800 kilometers or something. And I think the acceleration is not bad. You can see it. It wasn't full throttle anyway. I was actually thinking that maybe I'm just going to fill the tank now, even if we still have a little bit in it when we enter Spain, because we've actually found a petrol station that has petrol at a reasonable price for France, 1.83 euros per liter. We're just going to the now instead of adding partial refills and making my calculations a mess. It's not that more difficult, but I know I will probably lose the ticket with the liters and all that, so yeah, I'm just going to fill it now. It's not going to be stellar because it seems we have used 60 liters for 700 kilometers, so probably around 8.5 again, but we'll see. Good news! I've managed to enter the fuel station in the wrong direction because no one was there, and I just realized it after I started looking around. And another guy from the UK was actually doing the same with a van, and I was telling him to go around because it was actually easier for me to do that than do him with a van. Anyway, we filled with 53 liters and we've done 700 kilometers, so this works out at around 7.6 liters per kilometers, which is pretty good for a car like this, given that the weather has not always been incredible, and as you know, rain water on the road provokes more friction. Gears are not particularly tall in this car. You are doing 3,400 revs at 120 km an hour, I think that's it. And it's a heavy car, and it's an ancient injection system, I guess. So yeah, really pleased with that. Of course, I think it shows that some of the maintenance that we've done, such as the fuel filter and the spark plugs and even the thermostat, because I think the car is maintaining its temperature much better now, those have made a difference. So yeah. Anyway, there might be a reason why this petrol was relatively cheap. One of the reasons, the main one of course, is that it's an Auchan. It's just from the supermarket, the petrol we filled with. And the other reason is that this is E10, so there's a 10% ethanol content, which might not be ideal for an old car like this, because I think the ethanol will probably dry up a little bit more all the hoses, all the fuel connections, which is not particularly good for a car that has stood for a long time, but we'll see. I hope it doesn't start smelling like petrol. And of course in Portugal I intend to fill it up with E5 again. Never mind the glasses, it's not that sunny, but the little sun that there is, it's actually hurting my eyes because it's coming between the clouds. I guess you know the feeling. Actually, we've finally entered in some sort of autoroute and the limit is 130 kilometers an hour. I'm not doing that because I'd really like to keep my audition. Yeah, and also save some money, because at 130 kilometers an hour, I guess we're not gonna be able to average 8 liters per 100 kilometers. So we're just going a little bit now it's just 140 kilometers driving straight until we get to Limoges, where we'll launch. That's just boring motorway work, which this car does well, but it could do it even better. Actually, I was hearing some sort of whistle on the wind, so the wind was entering through a localized place. Okay, let's overtake this parcel. And actually, it was through the sunroof. That's one of the reasons why I don't particularly like sunroofs on older cars, because they are a source of trouble. Yeah, this one is not the worst. It doesn't leak water inside. It only does, and it only lets a little bit of wind noise in, but it's still not the best, and it's not working properly. And I'd say it's one of the worst things about this car. Even if it's not tragic, you can use it as it is. As for the sound system, it's actually pretty good in terms of the tweeters and the 4 speakers in all doors. For a car that was launched in '89, I think what lets it down a little bit is actually the radio. A 10-year-old Sony, which allows us to plug in the phone with the auxiliary cable. That radio just isn't particularly good in terms of amplification. All that. I think the speakers are good. I mean, the front ones are good because I replaced them, but the rear ones should be good too, and the tweeters. But the radio, nah. It's decent, it does its job, but the sound quality is not as good as in the Rover. And I think the radio plays a big part in that. But I think it has potential. Anyway, of course, this engine is a little bit raw. Of course, with time, the seals are not as good. But still, even if a little bit loud with this engine at 120 km an hour, it's perfectly pleasant at this sort of speed. And what's really good is the way it just goes straight without many corrections. It's really stable. It really gives you confidence, even if it doesn't really tell you a lot of what's going on. And that was never what this car was meant to do. But yeah, for this sort of thing, this car is very good. And I really am not missing that sort of feedback in this sort of road. It could do with a bit more feedback when you are going around twisty roads and that sort of stuff. And it handles them really well for a car this heavy and this big. It's just that it misses that sharpness. If you wanted that, you would buy an XM, I guess. Remember when I was complaining about rain? Well, now it's really, really hot. We had to just roll the windows down. Well, not roll because they're electric, but... And we are in the A20 doing 110 kilometers an hour, 130 for many miles. But we'll soon get out of it and go in the direction of Sarlat-la-Caneda. But yeah, it's really bad. It's kind of humid at the same time, not just hot. Really missing the air conditioning here. There's a lot of traffic too. At points, there were like 5 or 6 cars in the left lane, just waiting for their turn to finally finish overtaking a lorry or a camper. Okay, so we have established that driving in Sarlat-la-Caneda is actually more difficult than driving somewhere in the outskirts of Paris. I'm kidding, it's not as bad. It's annoying. So, as you already guessed, we are getting out of Sarlat-la-Caneda. We are still going south. We're gonna sleep near the border with Spain. And tomorrow we'll drive 809 kilometers with just 2 or 3 stops until we finally get home. That's the last day. And today it's a bit of an open day. We have a place that we want to see. I think it's called La Roche-Cageac. That should be it. It seems kind of pretty in a small village, old village way. And that's basically it. We're gonna drive and stop whenever we want. In terms of driving in total, we have something around 5 hours, so we still have some time to fill, let's put it that way. But yeah, we are clearly in an area of France where nothing much happens, I would say. I think the nearest big city is actually Toulouse. And we have been to Toulouse. It's very nice, with all the buildings that have that sort of rose tint when the sun hits. It's really interesting. We liked it. But we're not doing that today. Actually, the original plan was to go to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. I think that's it, in the Pays Basque. But we've had to book a different room. And we did that a bit late, and there was nothing that was suitable in that area, so we're gonna sleep a little bit more to the west, I think. Sorry, we're gonna sleep a little bit more to east. And that's basically it. We should go over 4,000 kilometers in this trip today. And really, everything's okay. I should have checked the oil today, but the car was on a slope. And really, it wouldn't give me an accurate level. So I'm just gonna do that when we arrive, and it should be alright. The roads are a bit different from what you've seen so far, but that's because we have deviated a little bit from the main axle, let's say. Interestingly, at least with this engine, this is where this car is at its best, with this sort of national routes at 80-90 kilometers per hour. Some corners, but maybe not too tight, because it has enough engine. The suspension deals beautifully with all these undulations. This is probably, look, an AX, great. This is probably the sort of road that there's a lot of in the UK, for example. We also have a lot of this in Portugal, and the car is actually better here than in the motorway at 120 km an hour, because of the engine, probably. So I would think that with other engines, maybe that wouldn't happen. Maybe the V6, it's a different story. But yeah, it's really good around here, and the only complaint that I would have is basically that the car is too large. Here it's not so bad, but there is one or another corner a bit narrower that you have to be a bit careful when there's traffic coming from the other direction. And I must say that the fact that you have such a big bonnet is not exactly great when you want to park. You have to bear that in mind, especially if you are the sort of person that doesn't like to park backwards. I do, and it makes life easier. But yeah, scenery is a bit different around here, a bit older, I'd say, a bit more picturesque. It's interesting because these really small villages are relatively well kept in a way that in Portugal I only can think of a few. Ah, that was the Santi there. My co-pilot decided to take a nap, so I'm really bored because it's just a big stretch of road, and the limit is 80 kilometers an hour. Yeah, it's still raining a bit, and we still have more than 100 kilometers to go. But interestingly, already less than 1,000 kilometers to our home in Portugal. So you could say that 80% of the travel is done. As you get to this southern area of France. Scenery gets a lot greener, and there are places you don't even get internet data on your phone. I don't think it was a reception, but internet, yeah. There's one or two cars that pass by once in a while, but it's just nothing happening. People don't seem to care about the speed limit, as you can see. Since I'm not from here, I'm not going to go over this, although I think I could, because actually it's just driving straight. There are no zebra crossings, there is nothing. I was just going to say that even if there were some corners, that would be an issue, because limits in this car are relatively good. I'm impressed. These are just mid-range tires at the front, some Nexen, they're okay. They're actually good, but they're not great. There are better choices if you want to grip above everything. Continentals at the back, and really, they are doing very well. This is a road car, and this is a car for travel. It's not really made for spirited driving, but it handles corners brilliantly, and it has no right to do so. It shouldn't have a right to do so, but it does. It's really good around the corners, and it reminds me of a bigger BX. That's basically it. A bigger BX that rolls a little less, and that deals a little worse with some ridges and potholes on the road. I still think that at the BX it was a 14RE was better at that. But overall, a really good compromise. And I'm actually curious how a car like a C6 would behave, because some people say it doesn't float as well. It's a bit more. Maybe they try to make it firmer. Maybe it's the extra weight. I don't know exactly what the feeling is. It's just what I've heard. I'm also curious of trying something like a CX or a GS, because that would probably be softer, going over potholes and sort of stuff. Of course, most of the time you encounter that when you're driving around town or just on the outskirts of towns. And this is a car for the open road, so that shouldn't be an issue. I am not being fair to this car. There are things that rattle, and probably because someone messed with them. For example, this center panel, it sometimes rattles because it's broken. The person that removed it before, I didn't even try without having another one to replace it. Broke it. For example, there is a rattle somewhere in the door, and of course, this handle is not completely tight. There's something that is not perfect there. That's the sort of thing. Sometimes it's just the car's fault, and of course, these cars are not renowned for quality. If I'm honest, it's still a huge upgrade from the BX, because in that car I could barely touch some sort of trim without breaking it. There's also one thing that, I don't know if XMs were like this when they were new, but there is a little bit of a whine from the gearbox in fifth, mainly in fifth gear, that really doesn't match the sort of car that we're talking about. It should be a little bit more sophisticated. Of course, these cars were 91, and it was launched in 89. But even then, I would hope for something better. Now, maybe it didn't do as much as it does now. Maybe there isn't enough oil in the gearbox. That could be a possible cause. But sometimes the damage is done, and even if you fill it up again, it still works. So I'm not sure about that. You tell me if you are watching this video and you have a car like this or no one. It's not terrible, and it's most pronounced at this speed. But really, I'm just trying to pick out drawbacks and possible issues, because overall it's very pleasant. Well, the situation has turned a little bit more wet. We are near Pau at the moment. This is actually the south of France, but we are still in April, so you should expect this. We are actually getting near just 30 kilometers to go, and traffic is getting a bit heavier around here. Those 4 miles we really didn't cross that many cars. By the way, this is the quickest speed for the wipers, And actually it's calming a little bit, the rain, but you can see that I still need that on that setting. I'm glad I've actually put new tires at the front. Well, I kinda had to, right? But yeah, it's a good thing with this weather. Well, it hasn't been stolen. Good morning! Welcome to the last day of this trip. And this last day we're actually not gonna stop to see anything. Any monuments, any cities, any whatever. We're only gonna stop to go to the toilet, eat, check the oil in the car maybe, and actually fill up the tank in Pamplona. We've already left Olon-Sainte-Marie, that's it, in the French part of the Pays Basque a couple of kilometers ago. 9 in the morning, the weather is a bit dreary, but that's fine, that's actually good for our trip, it's kind of fresh. I'd rather have that than cross Spain and have 30 degrees summer weather in April. The bad bit is that we have around 800 kilometers to do, and this will take about 9 hours. Just a little bit of motorway, mostly under Portugal. It's a long stretch today, and this first part from here until you get to Pamplona in Spain, it's gonna be 2 hours and 40. It's just winding roads. Not that I don't enjoy them, but maybe not today. But yeah, that's what we have. Of course, if we went more in the direction of Pau, we could just cross then in Irún. It would be a bit quicker. Although, since we are in the Basque country, you really can't escape the winding roads and the mountains and all that. And that's okay. That's part of it. The car has done really well so far. I hope it continues to do well in this last stretch. I think it's perfectly capable of finishing with no issues. Although one issue showed up yesterday, which was a defective rear light. I took a look at it this morning. It was supposedly one of the lights in the tailgate that wasn't working, and the moment I pulled the thing off, it started working. So it's just a matter of a bad connection, and it's fixed for now. It's not that bad that it wasn't working, because there are two. There is one in the taillight and another one in the body itself. The bad bit is that message would be here all the time, and I'm not entirely sure if that would cover other more important messages. I would think Citroën would be smart enough to actually give some sort of priority to the warnings, but at the same time, I don't know how evolved their technology was in '89, so rather not risk it and just have this ready to show any important messages if there are any. That's basically it. Ooh, that's okay. That's downhill quite a bit. I'll have to go for fourth. Yeah, these roads are really entertaining. Anyway, just wanted to give you a quick recap this morning. Now we're just gonna try and focus a bit on what is ahead of us. this is tremendous. But it's also a bit of... it's not a bit, it's just hard work with this engine and with a car that is starting to feel heavy. Otherwise, good fun. Well, for a driver, the passengers might disagree. And your luggage. Okay, so this signal means we are finally in Spain. But not without drama, because we had to rebook the room that we had here in the south of France. Originally it was in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, but we had to book it in Oloron-Saint-Marie. And I've checked the route, not the route, but the time and the kilometers we would have to do today. And of course I noticed that 2 hours and 14 to Pamplona for just 150 kilometers or something like that was probably a bit excessive, but I didn't think much of it. And of course I know that there are a lot of mountains here in the Basque Country. Actually this is not Basque Country, it's a bit to the side, but yeah, still a lot of mountains. I don't know exactly the name of this one, I'll probably put it over here somewhere. But the fact is, we went on a road that started climbing and climbing and climbing. At some point there was some sort of sign that said that some road was closed, but we didn't really pay proper attention to it, and it was in English either. We just continued. We kept climbing, the car was struggling, really not enough engine for this sort of thing. But then again, I think many naturally aspirated engines and with this heavy body would have trouble doing that. So it was basically second and third starting to die on me and me having to go again for second. At some point, no reception. Fog was getting worse, although not the worst I've seen. The barriers disappeared, so basically if you got distracted, you just go down there. I felt safe enough to actually continue, but really it was difficult and you had to pay attention and drive slowly. And when we got to the top, there was another sign that said that behind that the road was closed. So basically it was just done a couple of kilometers, I think 6 or something, which seemed like a lot more when we went to the top of some mountain with fog and no reception and the car struggling to find out that we shouldn't have been there in the first place. I'm glad that it's gone well. We've already descended quite a bit and fog is gone, as you can see. But yeah, that was unexpected and a bit of a test for this car and for me and for the nerves of my pilot. I even took a picture before I noticed how much we would climb. It doesn't really show much, but I'll probably add another one just so that you have an idea of how high it is and of course why the car was struggling that much. But yeah, that's it. 1 hour and 10 to Pamplona. And we will arrive there at 11:30ish. The weather has opened up, which makes sense because we are now really down in the mountain. And this is the NA 140, I think, that leads to Pamplona. And it's really a perfect road for this car because you have long stretches and then some relatively fast corners, and even the engine that we have here and the suspension characteristics of the XM, it just floats all over the place. It's incredible, really. I mean, it's probably not the most exciting way to do this road, but it's one of the most efficient and most effortless. Okay, this corner is a little bit tighter, 80 kilometers an hour, indicated 80 kilometers an hour. That will do. It seems to be a popular choice with the locals because they've been overtaken by a couple of motorbikes. They've already seen a Porsche 911, and that doesn't really surprise me. There was a section behind us that was actually a little bit twisty, and it was also good. That corner, that's good. It shows in these corners that it is a little bit heavier, this car, but it's still good and a really nice way of making good progress. Well, we're already after Pamplona, but no, the weather didn't actually open up. It's still kind of weird, still raining a little bit. We're only arriving at 7 in the afternoon, well 6 if you are in Portugal. I've just filled up the tank. This one almost got to 900 kilometers. Of course, I didn't really let it go dry. This worked out at around 8.2 liters per 100 kilometers. Given the miles we've done going up the mountain, I'm happy with that, really. Faults that this car has developed in the meantime, just one. The window on the driver's side, now I have to help it with one hand while I use the other hand to operate the button. But yeah, we are here. Portugal again. It's been 14 days basically. And surprisingly, even after what were like 8 hours driving, my back is still okay. That's amazing. As you can hear, we still have an engine, sort of. Other than some oil and 2 brand new tires, really nothing had to be changed. Nothing really stopped working. I mean, this window regulator, it goes down, but it doesn't want to go up all by itself. You have to help it a little bit. Other than that, we are good. How many miles did we do? Well, in total this car is now 157,127. We're over 5,000, that's for sure, in this trip. For a 32-year-old car, which was barely driven in the last 4 years, I think it's done pretty well. I need a shower, and I'm just gonna kill the engine and go in. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Maybe in a year or two, who knows.